Dear friends, welcome to the next session for Information Security Fundamentals. So, in today's session, we will be learning about various control mechanisms and we'll be discussing about some of them in detail. So, talking about control mechanisms, the first one that we will look at is the internal control. Internal control basically can be classified into three main classes, namely preventive control, detective control, and corrective control. And these controls are based on some pattern of activities. On one very interesting example of an internal control is the antivirus that you install inside the system. Basically, what does it do? It prevents malware from entering the system. If there is a file with a malware, it goes and detects and removes that malware from that file. And that removal is actually a corrective action. So, an antivirus thus prevents the malware, it detects the presence of the malware and removes it, which is essentially a corrective control. So, if we do not have this antivirus, then our reliability certainly is affected because of various threats which may be downloaded or because of various attacks which may be done through the internet. But with this control, certainly we can reduce the failure probability. We can reduce our expected loss and the associated errors. Failure in the sense that what could a virus do? A virus can also crash our system. So with these type of internal controls, we could get reasonable assurance about the CIA of my system, which is maintaining the confidentiality, integrity and availability of my system. But of course, all these internal controls comes with some cost benefit considerations because different antivirus or different softwares have different costs associated with it. So it is up to our prerogative to do the cost benefit analysis and find the best suitable option for us. So before we go into the specifications of administrative and technical controls as defined by COBIT, we will now look at the general controls initially. So what is this general control? A company designs general controls to ensure that its overall computer system is stable and well managed. Basically, why do we need this general control? Because the computer system should be stable from a security point of view or from the CIA point of view. So what is one of the first general control is to develop a security plan. Now, what is this security plan? This plan basically says the complete organizational structure of the system. That is, who is responsible for what, or how do you identify a user, or how do you authenticate the user, or how do you authorize the different resources, the access of different resources to a user, or how do you permit a user into a building. Everything, right from physical security to hardware security to securing the person, the process, the technology, everything. It has to be covered in our information security plan. It is not just about making hardware and software and executing certain applications on that. It is all about a comprehensive plan of how a data center is to be operated, which is what we call as developing a security plan. So the second important category of general control, which is segregation of duties within system function, we will be discussing after some time. The third is project development controls. So what is this project development control? For this, we'll take a case study of one project, namely say know your customer. Let us suppose that I am trying to look at the KYC using Aadhaar cards. So when Aadhaar card as a project was conceived, what is the security issue involved in making a project development plan? Or what is the control that I need to have when I am developing a project document? So one thing is that we could say that when we are trying to make Aadhaar cards, all personal information about that person is collected. For example, fingerprint, iris, date of birth, and many things which are associated with it. So fingerprints of all the 5 fingers sometimes. These are all taken at the time when we register for Aadhaar. So one of the most important thing that the project development document of Aadhaar should address is whether this information is confidentially stored in some place. And after that we have is logical access control and the data access controls, where a data should be stored or how it is should be stored, or how many times that it should be backed up, etc., or who should store it, or who has the access to read it, or who has the access to write on it or manipulate it. So all this comes under logical access controls and data storage controls. The next important thing is the data transmission control. That is, how do I transfer the data from one system to another, or am I using a virtual private network, or am I using a SAM, am I using a NAS, and when I use this, or what is the security that during this transfer. All these things, within all these things, nothing should get tampered, or the data should not be modified, or data should not be stolen at any cost. So these 7 are the primary general controls associated with the control mechanism. The next important general control is the documentation control, which is the documentation standard. Documentation is very important because documentation basically tells you the different details about the different assets. Now, if an information about an asset is missing and it is known only to one person, then he can go and change it in whichever way he wants. And basically that is the origination of any type of fraud. So it is very, very important to let every detail documented so that it becomes independent of any individual and everybody comes to know of it within the organization or whoever is authorized to know about it. And it also makes auditors who come into the system or who are independent or who can go there and work and look at these standards and look at these documents, and from that understand and infer what type of information asset is available or what is the value of this information asset, and many more attributes of the information assets. It becomes auditing, or the auditing of the system becomes much more easier to the external auditors who comes into the system for auditing it, so that they could go and audit and certify that a particular asset is indeed satisfying the CIA property. Now these auditors are very, very important from the perspective of maintaining the standards related to any sort of data or information asset. But although it is very important, many organizations do not have very strict documentation of their processes. Now the next important thing is to minimize about the general control is to minimize the system downtime, which is very, very important because a downtime is against the system availability. The amount of time your system is down relates directly to the availability of the system, because if the downtime is more, for that amount of time your system will not be available. So it is very important to control and address this property as well. And then we have the disaster recovery plans. When there is a disaster, how do we move securely to the disaster recovery center? Or when there is a migration of task from one place to another, how can it happen in a secure fashion so that all the processes are available or all the data that are transferred and no data and all information assets are transferred successfully and none of this information suffered from integrity issue or a confidentiality issue, and it is made available to the user within a minimum amount of time. So basically during this happens during the case of a disaster only, because at that disaster time you have to be extremely careful while shifting the data center to a secure location so that it is not attacked by hackers or any type of physical attacks is not done into the data. So this is a major challenge when you arrive at disaster recovery plans. The last but not the least is the protection of personal computers and client or server networks. It is very, very important because many organizations that use this IT as a client server model, and these clients and servers should be protected. Even if one client gets affected, it can start sending spurious packets on the network and it can clog the entire network, essentially leading to what we call as a denial of service. We already discussed about this. So even if one system is compromised in the network, it might be possible that the entire system might be put down, or the downtime of the system increases to exponential level, and thereby causing unavailability of resources and data. So the general controls which are listed here are the general controls which aims at providing us necessary security goal. The next one is a more specific type of control which we call it as internet control, and it is basically connecting the systems, that the information assets which we have, to the external world, and there more stronger firewalls and policies should be in place so that an unauthorized access to the information asset is prevented. So these general controls will not only look after maintaining the CIA of the entire system, however, it will also enable the smooth functioning of the system with minimum amount of delay. So the next we will discuss in detail about the second general control, which is also known as the administrative control, that is segregation of duties within the system's function. So as we have already been mentioning, any person who has unrestricted access to the computer, its programs, or the live data could have the opportunity to both perpetrate and conceal fraud. Please note these two words, the perpetration and concealment. That has a big implication on the segregation of duties. In any environment, secure environment, including banking, every operation will have a maker and a checker. So we have to understand these terms, maker and checker, very carefully. And the maker and checker need to be different. If the maker and checker are the same, then that means one fellow perpetrating and concealing the fraud, then it will be very difficult to identify. The maker could do a malicious action on the data and he can go and conceal, because he is the only checking authority or the authenticated person to check the authenticity of the particular process. For example, let us take a banking institution. As an officer, suppose you have to create a loan for a customer and a manager has to clear this loan or authorize this loan. So creating the loan is done by another person and clearing the loan is done by another person. Suppose the officer has the manager's password, he will log in as the officer and he will create or make the loan proposal. Again, then he will log in as the manager and clear the proposal. And this loan proposal, which might not have all the proper documentation, will get cleared and the loan proposal can go through. So this is essentially a fraud, because the loan should not have been given, but the loan is given by using some false documents, and the person who created the officer who created the loan or who proposed the loan, since he is the maker and the checker, was a manager. So the maker and checker became the same, and when the maker and checker becomes the same, then certainly this fraud can start happening, and this will also be concealed, which means no one will be able to identify who did that particular fraud. So any person who has an unrestricted access to the computer, its programs and live data, could have this opportunity of creating a fraud. So basically, when the maker and checker essentially becomes the same, this type of frauds can happen. at least in an organization, there should be at least 5 different classes of people. So there should be responsibilities associated with this classes of people. That is, the first class of people should be looking at analyzing the system, and they are known as the system analysts. The others, some of them should be architecting the system, etc. So that they generate a proper design of that particular system, which is also known as a decision making body. And the other class can actually implement that software. Another could develop and implement that particular software. Another can look at the maintenance of the software and hardware. And then there are users and there are auditors who look at the controlling of the data, or who looks at the logs, or who looks at different transactions and certify on a day-to-day basis that nothing is going wrong. So these responsibilities associated with different classes of people essentially would lead to the proper segregation of duties within the system as responsibilities while creating that particular system. So basically, the system analyst, as I already mentioned, they will be looking after analyzing the system. Some of them will be involved in implementing the system, coding that particular software. Then the users will be using that system, and the auditors will be auditing that system. So these 5 different classes of responsibilities should be divided into 5 different groups of people, so that the segregation is maintained, as well as the maker and checker are not the same class of people or the same individual. It is important that different people perform these functions, because if one person is allowed to perform 2 or more of the functions, it exposes the company to the possible fraud. And just in case, if it is not possible to segregate the duties, because these 5 different classes of people can be available, or 5 different classes can be divided among the people or within the system if the company is a large one. Now, if there are various small companies also where segregation of the duties is not very much recommended, because they might be constituting with just only 4 or 5 people, or maybe 1 or 2 people. Such kind of companies also exist. So if it is not possible to segregate the duties, to combat these kind of threats, organizations must implement some compensating control procedures, and they should be ready for any kind of compensation and any kind of countermeasurements for any type of frauds that might happen, which we call it as compensating control procedures. Now we will discuss about the next control mechanism, which is the physical access control. Now this is also one of the administrative control. Physical access control to the building that houses the data center is extremely important. I'm talking about the office, or I'm talking about the organization or the building which will be storing your data center. So the data center can have electrically operated door locks which have sensors and signals to open and close the doors, and they have proximity access control so that they could trap and turnstiles to stop piggybacking. So for every biometry based entry to the building, only one person can enter and not many, so that if anyone enters the premises also, you might easily be able to identify who has entered at what point of time. Now piggybacking is a process by which two or more persons will enter into the premise with the authentication of just one individual. The buildings can also have trained guards and receptionists, which is also very important, because without the availability of trained guards and receptionists, they will not be able to physically check the individuals if they are about to perform any type of attack into the organization or into the data center. There are various failure modes. Admission of the people who should not have been admitted, like we are not supposed to allow people into the data center who are carrying pen drives with them or having various digital devices with them, because there is a chance that the data might be stolen. And denial of access to authorized person. So sometimes this control mechanism also fails because of the automated softwares or automated guidelines. There are certain denial of access is generated to the authorized personnels as well. So these are the failure modes basically to the physical access control. Now, if there is a new employee, he should be given certain protocols which needs to be followed. If he is going to be a guest, he is going to be available within the organization for a very small period of time, then he should have separate set of protocols involved. If he is going to be a technical visitor, or he is going to be a visitor who is visiting a friend, so different classes of people should be associated with different types of protocols and should be checked thoroughly before admission. Otherwise, it will lead to the failure. There are specific issues also involved, which involves temper alarms, power failures, and code change policies. So even though we try to physically control the access of various classes of people who are entering into the organization or entering into the data center, the physical access control mechanism might fail because, as already discussed, if there are certain flaws in the software or certain flaws in the control mechanism that has been put into place. It might have tempered alarms, like the alarm might go off at any point of time. There might be certain power failures because of which the scanning systems or the devices which scans a person does not work, or there are certain code change policies involved while admission of a particular person, and the guards and the receptionists are not aware of it. So physical access control is one of the extremely important access control mechanism, which is the first level of control mechanism associated with any type of organization. And through this access control mechanism, you can actually prevent the data center or your system from having any type of physical damage. So basically, how to handle them is what you need to train, and this should all be a part of your information security policy. And the most important thing is, if this fails, like what do you mean by failure of an access control? Is that an unauthorized person has entered or an authorized person is denied access. Both of these are wrong. So one of the important thing is, how do we handle such type of contingency situation? That should be a part of the information security document. Whatever you have implemented, everything should go into the information security document that are developed by the system. So these access control mechanisms, which are put into place by the administration, which are also known as administrative controls, needs to be implemented at the very onset of setting up of any organization. So the next control mechanisms we will be discussing in our subsequent session. That's all for today. Thank you.